Hello and welcome back. This is MC1 Gamer, and I'm just about to enter into a game with Anthony from the Sustainable Center. He had between the last game and this one, he had contacted me and said, "Hey, let's do a campaign." And he started painting up this Empire army with a Morr theme. So a particular detachment from a particular area that's pretty focused on Undead. Pretty focused because they're on the border of Sylvania. So with some rich history. I guess he's looking to get into a little bit more of the story-driven part of the campaign, which I think is great because I think it's going to be something that will help not only him enjoy the game, but I think we'll have a good time too. Getting a game in that's more about the story than just about the win. So he sent me a really interesting write-up. He found online a kind of a modified Watchtower type game. And so it's still a 4x6 board, and there'll be an inn at the very center, which he'll have occupied with one of his units. And he'll then have half his army deployed within 12 inches of this central inn. And then he has the rest of the half of his army will be in two parts, so quarters. One quarter will be deployed after I'm deployed. I pick one table edge, and then I have to deploy I think within 12 inches, but that should give me some pretty decent chances to charge with any of the swift stride units that I have. Anything that's a fast moving. I don't have a lot of fast movers, and I'll go over that in a second. But then the final quarter of his army will then come in on the following turn, and that he'll have to then choose the table edge of his side. And the rule is that it comes in as if it had pursued an opponent off the board the previous turn. So it'll come on board with those limitations and restrictions. The game is set to last for 8 turns. I will get first turn, which gives me a huge advantage. And I'm expecting not just based on what I've seen of his army that he's painted up and has announced. I expect to see a pretty tough Empire list. He knows Empire pretty well. I mean, he's played it. He's brought it to GTs. He's played quite a few games with it. I think that's one of the better armies that he knows. Maybe only second to Bretonnian. So Anthony will give me a good game. But he's got a background. I guess he might be doing a little bit of a fluffy list. So I didn't want to bring like Terrorgeists or and I've been using Cryptars a lot, and certainly after playing Nagash for so many games, I wanted to bring something that was a little more authentically undead. So this is my army. And now this is Undead Legions. This isn't Vampire Counts. So I did take a mix of everything. And I think this is, a fun list. I don't think it's hyper competitive, but it does have some bite. So I went way beyond the minimum of my core. And I figured that was what I wanted. I wanted to create a list because, again, this is going to be an undead-focused list, an undead-focused campaign, and we'll probably do, I don't know, 5 or 6 games. I'm not sure exactly what he's suggesting. I think it's going to be at least that many. But I think we're going to get a good few games in, and we'll figure out what we're going to do with the story along the way. But my core, I guess it's not really that much bigger. Now that I look at the points, I'm maybe about 40 or 50 points over core, so not terrible. But I have a lot of infantry, and I don't have any flyers. I don't have any monsters, and I have a lot of basic infantry. So if he brings like Demigryph Knights, he's going to get his stomps. If he brings Cav, he's going to outmaneuver me. He's got a lot of options, but I think I could deal with that with some of what I've been bringing. Now I'm going to go over some of the details. Well, let's go first of all and talk about the characters. I wanted kind of a triumvirate of casters. These are my only characters. If he kills them, I lose. So I wanted to have. I thought about bringing with some of the other units that I have, and I'll describe them in a second. But I thought about bringing some other characters and potentially. Taking like, this is my mostly converted, but I've got a lot of proxies because I haven't finished up all the conversions to get 40 of them, but that's my grave guards. So they're like dismounted knights with, basically dismounted questing knights. So they all have great swords. And I'm going to plan on making another unit of maybe about 10. I can put it on the back row with weapon and shield, so I can switch out if I do choose to have some options. But I thought about putting, a Tomb Prince in there, maybe a Necrotech, so I can get things like Hatred and a higher weapon skill. But, when I'm looking at my points, especially with the character points, and again, I only have 3 characters, they're good. It's certainly, it's just not, there's not a vampire heavy list. I don't have a big ass vampire. But I thought about putting, really enhancing this Graveguard unit. But instead, I just decided to, give him the Banner of the Barrows for the +1 to hit. Please don't bother posting stupid controversies about the fact that Undead Legions can't take specific items from the individual books. That's bullshit. So if you want to go and post on that, I'm not going to bother. It's not even a debate. All right. So if you're going to go and, and start drumming up, that kind of stupidity, you're in the wrong YouTube video, and you're subscribed to the wrong person. So don't even bother. But getting back to people who want to be here and are sane, I just decided, what, I don't need a shit kicker unit. I like the idea of Graveguard. I think it has an authenticity to Undead. They're skelly. I wanted a lot of skeletons, and I wanted a lot of zombies. So, I decided, I figured after Nagash, rises, there's going to be a lot of, there's just the fluff, the write-up in the Nagash book, and it's just tons and tons of Undead, waves and waves of Undead. So I just felt, what, they're going to be a lot of casters that are going to need to control these guys. And although I could justify having a vampire lord, I just wanted to have a bunch of necromancers. And I also thought about the idea that I was actually thinking about a lich priest, and I just said, what, he's a few more points, and you don't get a whole lot for the value. But beyond that, it just didn't feel right to have a lich priest all the way over from, from the lands of the Tomb Kings be here. If it's something that they could summon, and it's something that they could, knit together with their necromantic powers, it would make more sense. But I didn't want to have it be specifically a tomb guard, or a tomb prince or a tomb king, or any of the specific casters to the Tomb Kings. At least not in the early stages. These things can be summoned, and I think that would make more sense if I could summon those characters. And those would be really good things to do to enhance this army over the course of the game, and even in future games. But I don't want to start off with that. I wanted to start off with the feel that these were more authentically things that came from the, or could come from the land of Sylvania or the surrounding lands, or could be created with the new waves of necromancy with the lore of Undeath, so that they could, the first types of things that would get summoned up. And that was demonstrated in the fluff, because in a lot of the stories, there were Screaming Skull catapults. So I have 2 Screaming Skull catapults, and I figure there's going to be some big blocks of infantry of his own, maybe some cav, some things I want to throw those rocks on. And maybe I can do some anti-battery work with the artillery. But I felt, because it was very well, documented in the fluff that they were, some Screaming Skulls, I figured I'm not really pushing the edge of the boundary of Undead Legions, combining these 2 books with at least the early stages, because that was there. I took a little bit of liberty with the Casket of Skulls. This is my my Casket of Skulls. I have 2 of them that I can make. One of them is actually part of my Graveguard filler, which I just threw a Necromancer behind there. But when I'm using my Graveguard, that's what I'm using. But when that's the case, I have these, the Reaper. What is that? It's some kind of a ritual. It's not a casket or anything, but it could double as it, and a couple of skeletons. I'm gonna do a better job on this, but this is this is what I have for now. But I wanted to have a casket. I figured it was something that could be just a necromancer from these lands, and they could have summoned it up with the new energies and powers. So it was a little more more reasonable. And I'll go over some of the other units, but let's just talk about these guys. So I have a level 4. Necromancer to Undeath. She's a fallen prophetess, and she has the Earthing Rod. Then I have my general, which is a level 4 lore of vampires. So he's the one that's going to be, also, healing and raising up units and restoring them with the invocation. She'll be raising new stuff. And then I have a level 2, and this guy has, what does he have? He has the Black Periapt. So I want to try and, I love the Black Periapt. And so he can store dice, and it gives me some advantages in the casting. And then I have a level 2 with the Dispel Scroll, and she's also to the lore of vampires. So more invocations. I have a lot of these big block units. I need to spread out the casting so I can restore these guys. That's my big game. I mean, I have a lot of stuff, a lot of things on the table, and they're going to get wounded, and they may even get wiped out, but I can delay that. It's 8 turns, so that's a lot of turns. So I have 2 units of 20 zombies. Those are my zombie men-at-arms with full command. Well, they don't full command. They don't champions. There's no such thing as a champion zombie. With standards and musicians, and those I'm gonna keep close to the casters. At least have one of the casters within range, so I can swell them up, and one cast can swell up both of them. I have 1 unit of 20 archers. I think that really fits with my Bretonnian theme to have some archers. These are skelly, Bretonnian peasants. 40 unit of ghouls, very appropriate, especially for around the Sylvania area. I have my big unit of 40 Graveguard, which we already talked about. No characters, no champion. I love the Black Coach. I haven't finished this one. I have some other things I'm going to do with it. I could have taken a Terrorgeist for maybe around the same points. A lot of people would prefer to do that, but I just thought it was just too much with the Terrorgeists enough already. I've been summoning them with Nagash, and I don't know if I'll get any off for this game, and I might try, but I like the Black Coach. I just love everything about it. It may not be the best competitive choice, but it just has a great feel for the vampire counts, and I think it should carry over for the Undead Legions very well. And I like the idea of having a chariot with the impact hits, and I just love what happens when it gets powered up with all those paradise. And 8 turns gives me a lot of time if this thing can survive to pump it up to max. 1 Spirit Host. I need to chaff up. If he's going to have a steam tank, I don't think I have any problems putting out a Spirit Host and trying to focus on that and take it out of the game. Plus, if he's got Demigryph Knights, that'll give me a huge advantage if I can get that Spirit Host in on there. I could summon him, but I want to have 1. I think it really works well. I don't have any other ethereals. This can turn ethereal, the coach, but I didn't bring like Hex Wraiths. They're possible. I can summon them. I didn't bring a whole bunch of different, ethereals. I don't have a Cairn Wraith champion or anything like that, or other hero, or anything. But I could raise them. But then I have a Corpse Cart. This is actually the first thing I've converted up. This is all magnetized, so this stuff comes off, and I can switch it from the Balefire to the whatever the other one is, the Unholy Lodestone, and this comes out too. So I actually converted that up, but I just haven't gotten around to painting it because I'm trying to build up the army. So I got the Corpse Cart, and that's mainly to give me always strikes first. I'm not going against elves. I really think it has a huge impact on the zombies, because a lot of people don't know is that it doesn't just take away, when you cast a augment on this thing, it doesn't just take away the always strike last for zombies, it actually makes them always strike first, and that's a great big advantage for zombies. So I'm going to keep that thing as close as I can to the zombies. Won't have a huge impact on the great weapons here. It just means that they won't strike last, but then they'll strike at initiative, but I'm really slow. It'll have a huge impact on the ghouls. The ghouls are probably going to have already a higher initiative, but I'll get rerolls. It'll really be a big deal with the ghouls. That's the huge one. But I think I'll also be able to at least turn those zombies into, once I grow them up a little more, they'll actually be able to take on some of his bigger block units. They won't be able to take on his cav or anything like that. So this is the Disciples of Nagash. And the battle report will come after we complete the game, and I'm not gonna go into any further details about my strategy, but I think one thing I'm gonna probably do is probably block this stuff all up in chunks and try to just really assault one side and just cave in one side of his army, since he's going to have to deploy around this inn and really protect the inn. I know what his focus is going to be. And without going in, I guess I didn't go over the detail of the actual scenario. It is a watchtower, but it's going to basically be whoever has the most points at the end of 8 turns within, they're within, I guess, 6 inches or 12 inches of the inn. And I have a lot of big units and big expensive units, and units I can heal up. So I can sit them in there, park them in there, or even push them out and park inside of that inn. I can heal stuff back. It'll be very hard to dislodge me, but I have to get him out first. So he's going to start with a big unit or a tough unit in there. Any of my summoned units, anything I might have to summon, and I can't do a huge bit of summoning. I've got a level 4, but still, this is not Nagash, it's not Arkan. It's just going to be the base points. So there's going to be small summonings. They're not like massive units, but they can have an impact. None of those count towards the point total for the center, to be closest to the within the range close to the inn. So I've got to preserve my points. I can't summon my way into a victory here. I can summon to chaff, I can summon to kill and destroy, I can summon to slow them down, but these are the units that I have to get in there. So obviously these big blocks, I'm going to try and thin any of his detachments down, try and kill out any characters I can. Maybe try to go after some War Machine stuff if I can with the archers. But I'm going to hold up with as many of these guys as I can. These are the big units I want to get in there. There's a lot of points there. So this is probably good, 800 or 900 points between these two. That's the big stuff. And augment with that, chaff up with that, and then, you know, come around and really rip into stuff with that. You know, maybe if he has any knights or anything like that, or any, you know, sword masters or anything like that. I don't know if they're called sword masters, great swords, or anything, any of these really heavy units. So I can down the armor saves, or anything that doesn't have a magic weapon. So that's it. That's the army. I hope you like. You know, please, you know, feel free to like, and, you know, of course, comment if you have any thoughts or, you know, interests in this scenario. We'll be happy to discuss it.